Now for the wooden border of this diorama base, it's just pine. I've stained it with a black Japanese stain. It's been oiled and waxed. I've routed off the corners with a round over, and there's the normal 5mm slot that I do on the inside for a piece of acrylic, for an acrylic case. And the edges have been, or the corners have been mitered, so it more or less gets a decent grain wrap around the edge. Now let's get into the rest of it. Now let's talk about the base before I actually get into the Sculptamold. So this black thing here is the tubing that the smoke will hopefully come up through. I've got bits of wire staked into it, and that wire is also covered in packaging tape. So hopefully once I've got the Sculptamold and the grass and the dirt and everything on it and I'm ready to take these out, nothing will stick to it. I have no idea if that's going to actually work or not. And I also have no idea if this tube's going to work. We'll just have to wait and see. So yeah, let's get on to the Sculptamold. As per usual, obviously Sculptamold. If you can't get it and you're in Australia, you can use Sculpted modelling mix or modelling compound or whatever the hell it's called from Officeworks. Comes in a 10 kilo box. It's about 60-70 bucks. If you're in the UK, you can get Luke's APS from geekgaming.co.uk, I think his website is. You can get his modelling compound. I don't know how much that is, I haven't looked, but I know you can get it. And he also has a video, Luke's APS also has a video on how to make this kind of thing. I'll link it up in the corner and in the description. Now, because Sculptamold's completely white, I'm going to attempt to add this apple barrel melted chocolate brown colour to it, to colour it, so if it ever gets cracked or anything, it shouldn't be that obvious. That's the idea anyway. And then we add a little bit of water. Probably too much water, as I usually do. I'll mix this up and then I'll be back once I'm ready to apply it. Alright, so I've mixed it all up and I'm ready to apply it. Now, I think I forgot to say that you should mix it up to kind of like a thick porridge sort of thing. The thicker you mix it, the quicker it is to dry. And I have no idea if I've mixed up too much or too little. It's always the problem. You always end up making way too much or not enough. But we'll see. Now another thing, when you add paint to it, it dries much lighter than it actually looks. So you do have to add a fair amount of paint. I'm hoping I haven't mixed up too much because I lower the foam about 5mm below the surface of the exterior wood because I'm putting an acrylic case over this, and I want the slot that I've cut, I want the dirt and everything, grass and dirt and everything, to roughly line up with the top of the exterior wood. I don't want it protruding over it, and I have not made anywhere near enough of this. But you get the idea. Slap it on, spread it around, and wait for it to dry. And as it starts to dry, what you can do, you wet your finger and you can smooth it out with your wet finger. Now, as you can see, the base is done. Sculptamold's pretty much dry. Painted it with a burnt umber. I did have to sand it a little bit because it wasn't as smooth as I wanted, but it's fine. Now, for anyone wondering or going to ask why I put the tube into the Sculptamold instead of just putting it underneath and then piping up from the bottom, that is a very good question. Now onto the dirt. The dirt is just standard dirt from the garden, with a little bit of tile grout mixed in to lighten it, because as you put glue and other things onto it, it's going to darken over time. There's a stocking, so we only get the really fine dirt. Going to glue it down with Mod Podge, and then once that has had a little bit of time to dry, I'll spray it with isopropyl and then a 50-50 mix of Mod Podge and water. The isopropyl is a wetting agent. It will allow the Mod Podge to seep into the dirt properly, and it will create a shell rather than just sitting on top like it would normally. Now I'm going to put on my dust mask, because this does make a hell of a lot of dust and you should be wearing a dust mask when you do it. And I also forgot to say, when you do the Sculptamold and you're mixing it, you should also wear a dust mask, just because it's plaster dust and you don't want to breathe that crap in. So I'll do the dirt now. Little paintbrush to get around the wire. Dirt time. I'm going to do this quick because this is starting to dry. Alright, and there we go. So I'll let this dry and then I'll spray it down and I'll be back. Okay, now I've saved you the boredom of having to watch me paint all this glue on. The static grass that I'm using is Woodland Scenics 2mm light green, dark green and straw. Mostly light green and straw because I want it to look pretty much dead. So static grass is really easy. Your static grass applicator, and then add your charge. And try not to zap yourself because it bloody hurts. And there we go. Now I'll just vacuum up all the excess and I will finish doing the rest of it. Now, I'm going to quickly show you how I'm doing these little mausoleums. I've got two of them that I'm doing. So, bring you in. This is one that's mostly done. I did forget that I had to dry brush it before doing all the washes. So this one still needs to be dry brushed, but this is pretty much what we're going for. So all different stone colours, some of them on this next one I'll have to be more careful with. The blue has a copper roof, bronze and like a steel door. The cardboard with the foam doesn't look right. They're both already made. I don't have time to remake them. Now, the way I'm doing the stone lines is really simple. Just grabbing a pencil, picking a spot that looks roughly right, and away we go. Brick texture is done. Now for the roof, I'm just using cardboard. I have cardboard here. Focus. Now I've already scored along these lines here for the tiles. And this is going to be the cap for the roof, so it's going to go over both sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to score. I'm going to score the middle, and then I'm going to cut it off roughly right. And along all those score lines I'm just going to bend it. But now that is going on here. Just want to make sure that it looks roughly right and it sits right. Right, now that I've got it focused, so it looks roughly right, sits roughly right. See if I've stuffed up the tiles. Huh. they overlap correctly. So now I'm going to glue it in place. I'm just using super glue for this because I don't have time for anything else to dry. As of the time of filming this, it is the 26th of October and I still have a hell of a lot of work to do to get this thing done by Halloween. Which I probably won't get it done in time, but we'll see. Push it down, make sure it stays. It's a little bit wonky because the roof isn't perfectly straight, but who cares? So that's the roof pretty much done. And now to open these up, all I'm going to do, if you'll focus, all I'm going to do is take the end of my paint stirrer and score down the already cut or already scored lines. So it makes the lines a little bit more defined. I'm going to finish doing that and then I'll be back. I've saved you the torture of having to watch me paint this thing. I've already painted it. But now I'm going to pick out certain stones and make them different colours. So my palette here, I have 4 different mixes of the base colour, near enough. I have 4 different colours. So I have nutmeg brown, melted chocolate, 2 blue and bright yellow. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a touch of each of these colours to one of these base mixes, and that's what I'm going to use to colour the bricks. And the base mix is 2 drops pewter grey and 1 drop white. These are all apple barrel paints. So I'm going to do that. Now I'm back. I swapped out the nutmeg brown for the holly green just because I didn't think I needed 2 browns. So now the fun bit, picking out individual stones and deciding which ones to paint. Now I've finished the painting. As you can see, I added the banding and I also did the roof. It may look a little extreme at the moment, but once you add a dark wash onto it, like a black, it's going to blend. It's going to blend everything in pretty well. Compared to the other one, I don't know how well it's going to come up on camera, but the colours on this one are really vibrant compared to this. That's what I meant by just a touch of colour. And once this has a wash on it, these should blend in pretty nicely. I also added some orange as well because it was too cold. There was too many greens and blues. So I added some orange and I mixed that in with some of the other colours as well. And the roof is the nutmeg. I just added some white, black, and then I did really light ones and picked out other tiles. And once we dry brush that with copper and weather it, give it a bit of a patina, should look nice. I suppose I'll have to add the banding on this one now as well, which is annoying. So next I'll get to the door for this one. Now, as you can see, I've painted the door. I have a gunmetal on the outside, which is meant to look like iron or steel. The other door, I added a bit of paint, black paint to it. I forgot to do that with this one, so it's a little bit brighter, but it doesn't matter. And then the inside is just bronze. So now I'm going to add a patina and rust. The patina is really easy to make, at least with the paints that I've got. I just use some AK Rough Sky and some AK Blue. 5 drops of the sky to 1 drop of the blue makes a decent looking patina for the bronze. And then I have AK Dark Rust and AK Old Rust, which I'm going to do for the rust. The paintbrushes I'm using are just pony hair, cheap ones, because I want the randomness. And all I'm going to do is hopefully not add too much. So now, before I get on to showing you how I'm going to do the path, because I'm not just leaving it dirt, I'm going to use ballast. This is light grey and grey. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I'm going to do the ground scatter for just random crap on the ground. So I have a bunch of stuff here. I have knock leaves, medium, light and dark green. I have blended fine green leaves that from the garden, and then blended orangey brown kind of dead leaves again from the garden. I also have Woodland Scenics burnt turf and Woodland Scenics weeds, and as an added bonus we're going to glue this little fungal zombie dude in, if I can get him in focus. He's had a little accident with his legs when I was getting him off the printer, or cleaning up the supports. I snapped his legs off, so we're going to have him climbing out of a grave, and we'll build up some dirt around him and everything. So I'm going to time lapse this and let's get into it. Alright, not that you really need to see how I'm doing this because it's pretty simple, but I thought I'd show you because I'm sure someone would ask. So the road's been painted with Mod Podge and I'm just sprinkling the ballast on, trying not to get it everywhere. and that's how I'm doing it. So I'm going to finish the rest of this, and I will be back once this thing is fully finished. I'm going to quickly skip over the electronics because you don't really need to see me hooking everything up. So for the LEDs, I'm using 0805 surface mount flashing LEDs. These are RGB fast flash. For the audio, I'm using, this is a DF Player Mini. Couple of buttons, one turns it on and lowers the volume if you hold it. The other one skips forward, I think, and hold it raises the volume. I'll put a wiring thing on the screen so you can see how I've done it. And then for the smoke, that was kind of a failure. I attempted to make my own smoke machine with a little bit of nichrome wire as the coil, but I think I got the resistance wrong, so it doesn't actually work. The idea was to have the nichrome wire with a bit of cotton, some of the fluid, which is just glycerin and water, and then a little fan so it would blow up the tubes. And yeah, this looks like crap. I built it in about 5 minutes. But it doesn't actually work. I think I've got the resistance of the coil wrong, and I think my fluid's a little bit crappy. So I will endeavour to try this again. But that's pretty much all the electronics in this thing. So let's see the finished product, I guess. And now, as you can see, it's working. And yes, that music, hopefully if you can hear it, is coming from those speakers. Now, I put up some B-roll and close-ups of certain things and some of the minis. I didn't show painting the minis because I'm not a mini painter. But this is what it looks like. Unfortunately, the smoke doesn't work, but I will endeavour to fix that eventually. So, if you liked the video, give us a thumbs up, give us a sub, all that other whiny YouTube crap. And if you didn't like the video, I don't particularly care. Alright, so